Yo guys, Daily Tech here. Today's video is sponsored by BandWerk, German-made luxury Italian leather watch straps that promise extraordinary comfort, and yes, this special edition I'm rocking is made from the interior leather of a 1986 Porsche 911 G-Series. Link in the description. Hey, it's Chris, and today we're gonna be talking about the Apple Watch, but not like we usually talk about the Apple Watch here on this channel. I feel like I've made countless videos at this point explaining all the really great features that everyone has kind of heard about and just wants to know more about. Today I want to talk more about the unsung hero features of the Apple Watch, if that makes sense. Like the stuff that everyone sort of glosses over, or, you know, the workhorse things that everyone isn't just obsessed with, you know? I really think this is a worthwhile subject to spend a little bit of time on because there's all this stuff that kind of happens under the hood, like stuff that nobody really thinks about, but if you took it away, then the Apple Watch would be so much worse. So we're not gonna be talking about the best apps for a change, and we're not gonna be talking about all the fitness and health stuff, and we're not gonna be talking about the new always on display. Before we get into it, can I just ask you guys, take a minute after this video and go check out the new podcast and the Clips channel, because I'm really proud of the work that we're putting in there, and there's a new podcast every single Friday. It's coming up, so if you get subscribed in your podcast app or on YouTube, if you wanna watch it, wherever, you're really gonna like it. And the last thing, I feel like it should be obvious at this point, but the timestamps are down in the description. Now, I'm gonna get into these, and they're not really in any specific order. So it's not like I'm stacking all the best stuff at the front or the beginning, or like saving the best for last. It's just like all interspersed. So really, it should be pretty interesting all the way through this video. But the first thing that I'm gonna talk about has to be the flashlight. The flashlight, because you don't see this on the marketing. It's barely like noticeable. There's not like an app for it. You gotta swipe up and access it a special way, but the flashlight has saved me so many different times. Like every day when I come into the studio here, which you can't see because it's on a green screen right now, but it's like pitch black, and there's several switches that I gotta walk around and find in the dark, and oftentimes I'm carrying like a bunch of boxes and a camera and all kinds of stuff that I don't wanna drop, and there's some accidents sometimes, but having that flashlight on my wrist, we're gonna just swipe up and tap it and get it going, is like killer. I use this a lot. I'm guessing a lot of people do actually use this, that use an Apple Watch. Hopefully you know about it if you have your Apple Watch. But I love the fact that it doesn't just blind you when it comes on. Have you ever noticed this? When you turn it on, it waits like a second and then it goes full power. So it lets you know that it's on, you see this on, and then you aim it away from your face and it goes full power. It's awesome. You can get like different colors and whatever. This is not a tips video, but I do really like this flashlight. Something else that I use every day, and I've been using it more than ever lately, is the unlock my Mac feature. I probably said that, or I don't know what it's actually called, but when I sit down at my Mac, I don't have to use my fingerprint or type in my password. It just unlocks the second I move the mouse or, you know, start typing on the keyboard or whatever. This is so cool, especially for my setup lately. It's offered me a lot more flexibility because I've hooked up to that 49-inch super ultra-wide monitor, and so that covers up the fingerprint sensor, right? So I would have to like open that and scan my finger, put it back, or type in my password, which I hate typing in the password. And so it's a little thing, it's not like a huge thing, but it's these little conveniences that make me love the Apple ecosystem. I say this all the time. And it's not just the unlocking of the Mac that I like. The Mac and the Apple Watch, they're working together more and more all the time. Now with Catalina, if you need to authenticate something, instead of like typing in a password, I can just do a double tap on this button right under the digital crown and authenticate stuff that way. So I'm loving that cross-device integration. It's a killer feature. Now, some of these things are like crowdsourced. I asked you guys on YouTube and elsewhere for some ideas about this, and somebody brought up the now playing screen. And I wouldn't have thought about this myself, but yeah, you're right. The now playing screen is amazing because if you're playing music, let's say in Apple Music, on any of your devices, whether it's your phone or whether it's your HomePod or even your Apple TV, you always have the remote right here on your wrist. So you can be skipping around, you can heart stuff, you can like save stuff to your library. It's really powerful and really amazing and super convenient. That's what the Apple Watch really is all about, convenience. And it shows with that now playing screen. I want to throw on this list Siri, like having Siri on your wrist, because a lot of people pan Siri. They're like, oh, it messes up. Oh, it's not as powerful as other things. Like, no. Siri is an important thing to have on your Apple devices. Think about all the things that you use it for and that it does work for, and how bad it would be without that. So to have that on your wrist, and to just, for me, you guys know, I'm always using that to make like reminders. My life runs on reminders. So just to be able to raise up my wrist, not even have to say, hey, SIRI, not gonna set off your stuff, and just be able to say like whatever the reminder is or start a timer. We're back to that convenience thing. I love having that there. And the fact that it's there, and the fact that I can hear it now, right, for certain things, whereas before on older models, it would just like read, you would have to read whatever the response, but now that I can hear it, it's super convenient. And it's not just that I can talk to it and that it can talk to me, it's the Siri watch face. For a long time, that was my favorite watch face. And the reason is because it's smart. Like, it changes automatically, contextually, based on what's happening in my day. So if you took Siri off the Apple Watch, it would be a big deal. It would be way worse. I feel like this may be the most underrated feature on the Apple Watch, but the ability to use the watch as a remote for your iPhone when you're doing a camera. So like if you set it up on a tripod and you need to take a group shot of everybody, you can open this up and see what the camera sees, so you can frame up the shot, make sure everybody's in the shot, and then you can also control the shutter, right, with the tap of a button, or the timer, or whatever. That's a huge deal, right? Because I can't tell you how many times we've been in like a family photo and nobody's like properly prepared. And even I like forget that I have that ability on my Apple Watch. It's almost like this thing does so much that it's hard to remember it all, right? And that's not just killer for family portraits and photos. This is a killer feature for a creative person like me who's doing video stuff, and to be wherever I am with an iPhone and an Apple Watch, I'm like ready to go if I need to record something. And I'm able to do that and frame it all up because it's great that the new iPhones have 4K recording out the front camera, but it's not quite as good as the back. So to be able to flip it around, use the very best camera, and frame it all up and everything, this is amazing. I don't know, I said that the last one was maybe the most underrated feature. Maybe actually this one is. It's gonna be hard to pick, but just the ability to ping your lost iPhone and help you find out where you left it, I can't tell you how many times that has been useful. And not just the ability to play a sound from your iPhone, whether it slipped into the couch or is out in the car or wherever. Sometimes I've left it in like a pocket before and caught it in the clothes hamper before it was a disaster. But not just that it plays a sound, but if you long press on it, we covered this in a tips video in the past, it will actually flash the light on the back to help you visually locate your phone. One of you guys brought up the ability to turn on hourly or half-hour chimes, which you said really helped keep you productive and like on task. And I have to agree with that. That's pretty cool. Sometimes I turn that on, sometimes I turn it off. It's been off for a while, but when I did have it on recently, and it's only off because I switched watches recently. Otherwise, I probably would have left it on. Maybe I'll turn it back on. But when I had it on, it was really nice to know like an hour has gone by. Because sometimes, like this morning, the morning flew past. I'm trying to edit the Beats video, which is super long and super intense, and you don't always realize what time it is. You know, like on the Mac, you don't look up there in the corner when you're really busy and say, oh yeah, that's what time it is. But when it just gives you a nice little tap on the wrist, you're like, okay, now I know where I'm at in the day. It's really nice. Something else that's cool, that's underrated for sure, that I like to use every now and then, but maybe isn't something that I would rely on, is the ability to control my Apple TVs using my wrist, using my Apple Watch as a remote. Recently, I've been using my iPhone as an Apple TV remote because, of course, if you swipe down and you get the control center, you can have a shortcut right there. I think it's default, is it? I don't remember. But you tap on it and you connect to your Apple TV and you can just use your iPhone to control your TV. Well, you can do that same thing with your Apple Watch. Now, The reason I like doing that with my iPhone is because it's just a little bit more convenient. I feel like one of the worst products Apple has put out is that Apple TV remote. You're always like accidentally hitting the button and whatever. It just could be better. But I feel like it's a little bit more accurate for me when I'm using that remote app on my iPhone. Now, it's a little bit less accurate, again, I feel like, on the Apple Watch, but it's still cool like in a pinch. Sometimes you sit down and the remote's nowhere near, maybe your phone's somewhere else too. It's like, well, whatever, I'm not getting up. I'm just gonna Apple Watch it. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool. Something else that's kind of cool is the ability to open and preview links, like web links, web pages, when somebody sends you a link in messages. That's very cool. And along the same lines, you can watch a video if somebody sends you a video in messages. Now, I don't think you can watch YouTube, but if somebody sends you like a personal video, then you can check it out on your wrist. I absolutely wish that you could have like more robust video support on your Apple Watch, because believe it or not, like there are times when that would be cool and useful. And I wish that there was. Honestly, like, can you imagine a YouTube app on your wrist? I don't know. That probably will never happen. I don't know like how useful that would be, but there have been times when I've liked watching video on my wrist. Like there was a Twitter app that I've covered many times, which let you watch video on your wrist. And that was cool. I don't know if they stopped that. I don't know if you can still do that, but it's nice. I think one of the lessons, though, of this video as I'm talking and hearing myself is that the Apple Watch can actually do a lot more than even Apple lets it or than people think it can. And that only means that it can get better in the future. You know, just a software update can give you a huge new feature that you had no idea about. So as cool as this thing is already, it can always get better, and it will. I absolutely love the fact that I can glance at my watch, and get an hourly forecast for the next like 5 hours, right? You know, as convenient as asking Siri is on the HomePod or whatever, like what's the weather like, what's the forecast, it's just faster and it's better. And sometimes like if you're in a meeting or doing something, you don't really want to be talking to Siri. Just look at your watch. Oh, it's a complication right there. It's big. It's very easy to read. And I can see like what the high is, what the low is, what it currently is, and if it's going to be sunny, rainy, cloudy for the next several hours. That's really convenient. Like, yeah, I'm going to go on this walk. Can I go on a walk? Is it even warm enough? We're getting into winter here. Or should I bring like sweatshirt, jacket? It's super, super awesome. I love that. Something else that's pretty cool, very underrated, very minor, but I'm going to mention it, is that you can delete apps on the Apple Watch, right? And also the Apple apps, because you know, for a long time, whether it was on the iPhone or the Apple Watch, like you couldn't even delete the Apple apps. And so you had to create that folder that was like extras or Apple stuff and stuff everything in there and just like get out of the way. But I really like going as clutter-free as possible in the digital realm. In the physical realm, if you could look around the studio, you know that was a different story. You got boxes and stuff all over the place because I'm always moving at like 1,000,000 miles an hour. I need to take some time to clean up around here. But what I'm saying is, if I can get rid of the stuff that I know I'm never going to use without even having to manage it on the iPhone, that's pretty cool. Now, this next thing that I'm going to mention probably got the most press and attention out of all the different things that we're talking about today, but still, it's not like a huge major feature. It's just a nice thing to have. And that is not the calculator, but the tip calculator in the calculator. I mean, you're out eating and you got to calculate the tip. Super easy. Launch that calculator, hit tip, put in whatever, calculate your amount, get the tip, but also like the total right there. I mean, like, it's just cool. Tip calculator is not some major earth-shattering, groundbreaking thing, but it is something that I use a lot. And now that it's here, now that I've used it, I wouldn't want to not have that. Here's a big one, and this is super underrated. I've mentioned this in other places, in other videos, because how many videos do I make? But the fact that your Apple Watch remains worth something when you're done with it, like the fact that you can trade it in towards a new Apple Watch or a different Apple product, that's amazing. That's killer. We talk about this a lot in the iPhone conversation. Like iPhones retain more of their value when they're used than Samsung devices or other devices. Well, the Apple Watch, just the fact that it is worth money to Apple when you trade it back in, if you ever want to, that is really cool. That's underrated because your next Apple Watch, when you own an Apple Watch, your next Apple Watch never has to cost you the full price again. Now, this thing really borders more on like being a tip than being an actual underrated feature, but I kind of count it as that because I feel like it is, but you take it however you want. But it's the fact that you can wash the sport loop. You know, like the Velcro kind of cloth, fabric-y, whatever sport loop that Apple makes. You can wash that thing. And I've seen some that have been really dirty before. I'm not saying mine, but you know, I have a gray one or a white one, and it does over time, just because you're out like in the world, you know, get some dust and grime and stuff, maybe some sweat. And after a while, it doesn't look as nice and new as it could or should or as you would like. But I've actually heard of people like sticking it in a sock, tying up the sock, put it in the washer machine, and it pops out like brand new. I suppose it might depend on the color, but maybe not. Or you could also hand wash that thing and with like dish soap and get it looking new that way. So it's just cool. Like, you don't have to just accept it as dirty. It's nice that they're so well made, so sturdy, that you can actually wash them and get it looking new. If you own an Apple Watch or are buying an Apple Watch, you owe it to yourself to check out our sponsor today, BandWerk. If you're looking for an ultra high quality handcrafted leather strap, BandWerk has you covered with 4 different collections. The Paris collection with thinner leather, the Berlin collection with Russian calf leather, the Stockholm collection with vintage leather, and the exotic leather Zurich collection. Not to mention the special editions. So BandWerk bands have 2 clasp choices, the Italy Thorn or Butterfly. They can be engraved or hot stamped. And if you look around, they've got waterproof and synthetic options. And by the way, the lugs are gonna perfectly match your Apple Watch variation. This is pretty mind-blowing to me for a watch band, but in order to make each band, BandWerk goes through 172 different steps. Wow. So take my word for it. There are a lot of cheap bands out there, and they break and disappoint. It's happened to me many times. With BandWerk, you are going to be happy. Check them out using the link down in the description. All right, let's get into the Q&A. If you guys like this or don't, let me know down in the comments because I've been enjoying it, the option to share more with you guys and kind of get more of a conversation going, but let me know. The first question is there really that big of a difference between official Apple Watch bands and the knockoffs? I will say it depends on the band, because a while back, this is probably last year or 2 years ago, I was promoting an Amazon link. It was an affiliate link, I do disclose, but it was like an 8-pack or a 30-pack or something of sport band lookalikes. It was really cheap. I mean, it was like $10 or $15. And I noticed that when I linked to it, it was wildly popular. People were really interested in that. And eventually I ordered 1 or 2 of those because you can get all these different colors, you know, for so cheap, just to see like what it was like. And I'll tell you the truth, like it was very hard to tell the difference between those really cheap knockoffs and Apple's actual product. Now, I don't doubt that Apple's is more clever, the Sport Loop, and probably uses cooler materials, probably has a better fit and will last you longer. I don't deny that. At least that's what I would suspect. But still, in that situation, it's like, man, for 10 more colors for not that much money, you might as well get that. On the other hand, when it comes to like leather stuff or the Milanese loop, I would say, you know, anything like that, I think for the more complicated bands, you probably will notice a fairly big difference. There's so many knockoffs, I can't address them all, and I haven't tried them all. In fact, I've not really tried many of them, but the ones that I have, or just like cheap stuff in general versus more high quality stuff, for a lot of the bands, I would say you are gonna notice a very big difference. And sometimes the difference is like something can look leather, but it's actually plastic. And like the sponsor didn't pay for this, but I will just say it here, like the sponsor of this video makes really high quality leather stuff. And there's really low quality leather bands out there too. And I've used them and they're awful. They are cheaper, but it's not even worth it getting. It's similar to like Apple versus knockoff. We're just talking about like quality versus low quality in a lot of cases. So be careful, with the non-Apple bands or the really cheap bands. The next question is, how many years of use can you get from an Apple Watch? So this person's probably wondering, if you buy it and it's expensive, like, is it really gonna last you? Or is it gonna be like, you can use it for a year or two tops or whatever, and that's it? Actually, I have found that the Apple Watches are very well made. The batteries have lasted very well for me, and I'm just talking about like the quality of the casing and the screen, and even like, I don't know what it is, the lugs or whatever, where you attach your bands. Like, all that stuff has held up really well for me over the years. So I had the original Apple Watch. I guess you could say it was a Series 0, and I still have it around here. And it's in great shape. If I charged it up, it would fire right up, and it would be slow. I couldn't use it because it'd feel so slow compared to the new ones, but it would work. And so I think an Apple Watch is a really good investment in terms of, is it something that you can use for a long time? And I've had every successive generation, I think, and they're all still working. The one thing that I would say is, like, you got to be careful with it. Some of the ones, like the aluminum one a couple generations ago, I was on the treadmill and I dinged it because I was going too hard. So I don't know. And I hit it on the side of the treadmill, and it did get a little nick, like a dent, but it's still working. I feel like they're built like a tank, even if you don't get the ceramic or titanium or whatever. The aluminum ones, they're still like really strong if you're nice to them, is what I'm saying. Is the new Fossil OS update now a good alternative to Watch OS? I think this is referring to new Fossil watches got a new Wear OS update. It runs Android, I think, whatever it runs. They built a software layer on top of it to enable it to take calls from an iPhone, which I think is the first time that's happened on a non-Apple Watch, or with Google, with their ecosystem. I'm not sure exactly the details. But I will say it's interesting because that does help make it a decent alternative. Certainly you get it for cheaper than you can get an Apple Watch, I think, right? But here's the thing. Taking a call on my watch is almost my least used feature of the Apple Watch. In fact, it's so underused, I could have included it in this main video that we just made about underrated Apple Watch features. So, it's interesting. It's cool. I suppose it does actually make it a little bit more of an Apple Watch competitor, but it's still missing out on things like the ecosystem surrounding it. All the apps, the third-party apps and the Apple apps that you can get that are not available on a Fossil Watch. You're still going to miss out, too, on like the accessories. There's just more accessories, whether it's like charging solutions to charge your phone and your watch and everything at the same time, or whether it's like bands or whatever. So there's more apps, there's more accessories, and there's just more features, whether it's the health stuff, software and hardware side, or whether it's like Apple Music integration and stuff. There's so much that an Apple Watch does that a Fossil Watch just doesn't. I mean, of course it's an alternative, but is it a good alternative? It's really comparing apples and oranges. It's not apples to apples. That being said, I would really like to try that Fossil lineup and see, like, how does it compare to an Apple Watch? Like, as an Apple Watch user, could I switch to that, and what am I missing, and what's great about it? So maybe that's something that I should do. If you guys are interested in that, in me actually diving in and exploring it instead of just guessing about it, let me know. What's my least favorite Apple Watch face? I made a video about this a while back. An entire video, I think, was dedicated to this. And surprisingly, I think to a lot of people, it's actually the fairly new infograph watch face. What? I know. The reason is, though, I felt like it was too complicated. I was seeing too much information there, and yet not enough at the same time. Let me explain. Like, I didn't like how everything was jammed into the corners and then all the stuff in the middle. And by the time you add in the analog like ticks for the time, telling the time itself, it just felt really busy to me. I know some people like really love it. And this is the cool thing, like, right? I don't have to use it. And if you don't like something else, you don't have to use it either. But so I'm glad that it's there for the people that really like it. I just thought it was too busy. And at the same time, I felt like it didn't show me enough. I've been waiting for Apple forever to give me a watch face that's just like pure complications, like 9 complications. And maybe one of those is the time, so like 8 complications. But I just want to see a lot of information and have it really easily accessible. and sticking stuff into the corners with that really small text, it's okay. Like, I mean, I could use it if it was the only thing I could use. And it looks kind of cool too. I just don't love it. I don't know. Last question is then, what is my favorite Apple Watch face other than the Siri watch face? Okay, so this person knows that I've brought up the Siri watch face as being one of my favorites over and over again, so I won't talk that to death. I think my next favorite one, actually, and it's not really like an alternative to, it's just I like to use a bunch and sort of use them as workspaces and swipe between. So some are like for work, some are for entertainment, like music, podcasts, whatever. One of my other favorites is the New California face. And so I stick it on black background with the white letters and numbers and stuff. And it just looks really sharp if you're wearing